Hello, friends. Welcome you all for today's discussion. Today, we are going to see the prelims quiz that is under Indian polity full syllabus. Today, we are going to discuss only with set one questions. So, let us begin the discussion. First question: with reference to the Constitution Assembly, that is, Constituent Assembly, consider the following statement. The statement number one: the Constituent Assembly first met in December 1946 as per the provisions of the Cabinet Mission Plan. And statement number two: each province and princely states was to be allotted seats in proportion to its respective population. We have to identify the correct statement with the following options: 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, and neither 1 and 2. So let us see statement number 1. Yes, this statement 1 is correct. Why it is correct? The Constituent Assembly of India came into existence in December 1946 as per the provisions of the Cabinet Mission Plan of May 1946. This task was to formulate the Constituent for facilitating the appropriate transfer of sovereign powers from British authority to the Indian hands. Therefore, statement 1 is right. What about statement number 2? This statement is also right, since the total strength of the Constituent Assembly was to be 389. Of this, 296 seats was to be allotted to the British India and 93 seats to the princely states. Out of 296 allotted to British India, 292 members were to be drawn from the 11 governor provinces, 4 from the 4 chief commissioner provinces. Each one from each provinces and princely states were to be allotted seats in proportion to their respective population. So if you take roughly one seat was to be allotted for every million population. Therefore, both the statements are correct. So answer for question number 1 is C. Both the statements are correct. So let us begin with question number 2. With reference to the national anthem of India, consider the following statements. Statement number 1. It was first sung in December 1911 at the Calcutta session of the Indian National Congress. Statement number 2. The Constituent Assembly adopted on it on 24th January 1950. So here we have to identify the correct statement from the given options. Let us analyze the statements. Yes, this statement is correct. Statement 1 is right. Why it is right? The national anthem of India, that is Jana Gana Mana, was originally composed by Rabindranath Tagore in Bengali. It was first sung at Calcutta during the session of Indian National Congress in December 1911. Therefore, this statement number 1 is right. Let us analyze statement number 2. This statement is also correct, since it was adopted by the Constituent Assembly as the national anthem of India on 24th January 1950. This is the formal inclusion of this national anthem that takes 52 seconds. A shortened version consisting of the first and last lines, that is about 20 seconds to play, is also staged occasionally. Therefore, this statement is also right. So answer for the question number 2 is C, both 1 and 2. So let us move on with question number 3. Which of the following were the features of the Indian Independent Act of 19 47. So let us see the statement number 1. It provides for the partition of the India and the creation of two independent dominion, that is India and Pakistan. Statement number 2. I transfer the functions of the Secretary of State to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. Statement number 3. The British monarchy had the right to veto over bills, could ask for reservation of specific bill for his or approval until new dominion adopted their respective constituents. And statement number 4. Appointment to the civil services was continued. Which of the following statements is or are correct? So let us analyze the statement number 1. Yes, this statement number 1 is right. Why it is right? It ended the British rule in India and declared India as an independent and a sovereign state from August 15, 1947. And also it provided for the partition of India and the creation of two independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to sit from the British Commonwealth. So therefore this statement number 1 is right. Let us see about statement number 2. Yes, this statement is right. Why it is right? It abolishes the office of Secretary of State for India and transferred its functions to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. Statement number 3. This statement number 3 is incorrect. Why it is incorrect? Which means it deprived the British monarch. Here it has given us right to veto. Therefore this statement is wrong. Which means it deprived the British monarch of his or right to veto or ask for reservation of specified bills for his or approval. Therefore this statement number 3 is wrong. And it discontinued. Let us see about statement number 4. This statement is also wrong. Here it is given as appointment. Therefore this statement is wrong, since it discontinued the appointment of civil services and reservations of post by the Secretary of State for India. The members of the civil services appointed before August 15, 1947 would continue to enjoy all the benefits that were entitled to till that time. Therefore this statement number 4 is wrong. So by eliminating you can derive an answer. So the answer for this question is option A, 1 and 2 only. Therefore we can eliminate 4 from the options. Therefore you can eliminate D, C. 3 is also wrong. Therefore you can eliminate B. Therefore answer for the question number 3 is A, 1 and 2 only. So let us move on with the question number 4. So which of the following functions were performed by the Constituent Assembly of India? Statement number 1. It ratified India's membership to the Commonwealth in 1949, enactment of ordinary laws. It adopted national flag, national anthem, national song, and also elected the first President of India. Let us analyze the statement one by one. If you take the statement number 1, it is right. Yes, the Constituent Assembly of India was elected to write the Constitution of India. So after Indian independence from the British government in 1947, its members served as the national first parliament. So which means it adopted the Constituent and enacted ordinary laws. So with the statement number 2 is right. And also it ratified India's membership to the Commonwealth in May 1949. Therefore this statement number 1 is right. Let us see about statement number 3. This Constituent Assembly never adopted the national song, but it adopted the national flag and national anthem. Let us see. It adopted the national flag on July 22, 1947, and also it adopted the national anthem on January 24, 1950. But the Constituent Assembly never adopted the national song, and also it elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first president of India on January 24, 1950. Therefore, the statement number 3 is incorrect. You can eliminate option B, D, and C. Therefore, answer for this question number 4 is A, 1 and 2 only. A, 1 and 2 only. So this is right answer for this question number 4. Let us see question number 5. Which of the, with reference to the Constituent Assembly of India, consider the following statement. Statement number 1. The representatives of princely state were elected directly by the people. Kindly note down the word directly. And statement number 2. The Constituent Assembly could alter or abrogate any laws made by the British Parliament for India. The representatives of each community were elected by proportional representation to the means of single transferable vote. Here we have to identify the correct statements. So let us see. Statement number 1. This statement number 1 is wrong. Why? Since the representative of princely states were to be nominated by the head of the princely state, which was not directly elected. It was only a nominated. Therefore, statement number 1 is wrong. You can eliminate the options A, C, D. Therefore, answer for the question straight away. Option B, 2 and 3 is correct. Yes, this statement is correct. Why it is correct? The assembly was made a full sovereign body which could frame any constitution is pleased, and also the act empowered the assembly to abrogate or alter any laws made by the British Parliament of India. Therefore, statement number 2 is right. What about statement number 3? Yes, this statement is right. The representatives of each community were to be elected by the member of that community in the provincial legislative assembly, and voting was to be by the method of proportional representation to the means of single transferable vote. So this statement is also right. So answer for the question number 5 is B, 2 and 3 only. So let us move on with question number 6. Which of the following is or the unitary features of the Indian Constitution? All India services, a written constitution, and integrated judiciary. We have to choose the courts. See, if you take written constitution, it is a federal feature. Therefore, you can eliminate 2 from the given options. Therefore, B and C you can eliminate. So remaining is 1 and that is A and D. If you analyze the option, obviously statement number 1 is right. We have to analyze the 3. So here, yes, this integrated judiciary is also a unitary feature. Therefore, answer for the question number 6 is D, right? 1 and 3. Both the statement are right. Therefore, D is right. And let us move on with the question number 7. With reference to the Constituent Assembly of India, consider the following statements. Statement number 1. Dr. Rajendra Prasad chaired the Constituent Assembly when it met as the legislative body, and people of India directly elected its basis on adult franchise. Women were not represented in the Constituent Assembly. Dr. B. N. Rao was appointed as Constituent Advisor of the Assembly. We have to choose which of the following is or are not correct. Kindly note down, we have to choose not correct. So let us see the statement number 1. This statement number 1 is not correct. Why? It was chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad when it met as the legislative body, and it was chaired by G.V. Mel Lanker. These two functions continued till November 26, 1949, when the task of making of the constitution was over. Therefore, this statement is incorrect statement. And let us see about statement number 2 and 3. The Constituent Assembly was not directly elected by the people of India on the basis of adult franchisee. Therefore, this statement is also wrong. And the assembly comprises of representatives of all the sections of Indian society, that is Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs, Parsis, Anglo-Indians, Christians, SC and STs, including women of all the sections, including the women. Therefore, this statement number 3 is also wrong. What about statement number 4? Yes, this statement is correct. Sir B. N. Rao was appointed as the constitutional advisor of that assembly. So this statement is right. We have to identify the not correct statement. Therefore, 1, 2, 3. First 3 statements are not correct. Therefore, answer for the question number 7 is C, 1, 2 and 3 only. Let us move on with question number 8. The preamble is considered as the soul of Indian Constitution. In this lights of, we have to consider the statements. The preamble is embodied with the values that inspired and guided the freedom struggle, and the preamble guides all the parts of Indian Constitution except fundamental duties. Here we have to identify the correct statement. So if you take statement number 1, it is correct. Why it is correct? The preamble encapsulated the aspirations and values began the freedom struggle. That is, the Constitution gave institutional expression to these fundamental commitments, that is, equality, liberty, democracy, sovereignty, and cosmopolitan identity. And also, it provides an objective of securing justice to all. Therefore, statement number 1 is right. Let us see statement number 2. This preamble contains underlying philosophy of which the entire constitution has been built, and thus the preamble guides all the parts of constitution, including fundamental duties. Here the statement given as except fundamental duties. Therefore, this statement is wrong. So the answer for the question number 8 is A1 only. So A is right answer for this question. Let us move on with the question number 9. With reference to the preamble of the Indian Constitution, consider the following statements. It is based on the objective resolution drafted by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and moved by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And statement number 2. The preamble cannot amended as it's not part of the Constitution. So if you take both the statements, yes, both the statements are incorrect statements, since it is based on the objective resolution drafted by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and adopted by the Constituent Assembly. It has been amended by the 42nd Constituent Amendment Act 1976, which added 3 new words: socialist, secular, and integrity. Therefore, this statement is also wrong, which is statement number 2 is also wrong. since it was amended one time, that is 42nd Constituent Amendment. And this objective resolution moved by the Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, not by the B.R. Ambedkar. Therefore, both the statements are incorrect statements. The answer for the question number 9 is D, neither 1 nor 2. Let us move on with question number 10. Which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India were given immediate effect to the November 26, 1949 before the old Constitution came into force? Citizenship, emergency provisions, election, fundamental rights. See, so these are the provisions immediately came effect from November 26, 1949. What are they? Citizenship and elections. These two, citizenship and election, only came immediate effect on November. Therefore, option D is right for this question. Though the Constitution came into force on 26th January 1950, some provisions relating to citizenship, election, provincial parliament, and temporary transitional provisions were made immediate effect. Therefore, D is right. Let us move on with question number 11. Consider the following statement with respect to the features of the preamble. 1. The Constitution derives its authority from the people of India. It declares India to be democratic and republican polity only. It specifies justice, liberty, equality, secularism, fraternity as the objectives. It stipulates November 26, 1949 as the date of adoption of the Constitution of India. We have to identify the correct statement. So let us see the preamble. The preamble provides, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India in our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day, November 1947, do hereby adopt, enact and given to ourselves this Constituent. Which means statement number 1 and 4 are correct. And let us see that this shows the Constituent derives its authority from the people of India, and also it mentioned the date of adoption of the same. Therefore, statement 1 and 4 are correct. And if you take statement 2 and 3, see, the objectives of the Constitution provide in preamble to secure all the citizens justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and the nature of the Indian state, that is Constituent, that is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. These are the words included by the 42nd Constituent Amendments. Socialist, secular, these are the things included by 42nd Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Amendments to explain the nature of Indian states. Therefore, statement number 2 and 3 is wrong. Why? Since it has mentioned as democratic and republican political only. No. And also in statement number 3, secularism is there. Therefore, statement number 3 is also wrong. Therefore, answer for the question number 11 is 1 and 4 only. So this is the right answer. So let us move on with the question number 12. Which of the following writs is issued by the court to a public official asking him to perform the official duties that he has failed or refused to perform? Here it is straightforward and answer. The writ of mandamus will be given, which is, the mandamus means we command, that is, it is a command issued by the court to a public official asking him to perform the official duties that he has failed or refused to perform. Therefore, this statement number D is right. One has to note that This writ of mandamus cannot be issued against a private individual or body, and also to enforce the departmental instructions that does not possess a statutory process, and also when the duty is discretionary and not mandatory, and also this mandamus cannot be issued against the president of India, or it cannot be issued against the state governors, and also it cannot be issued against the chief justice of high court acting in judicial capacity. So this is about the writ of mandamus. So let us move on with question number 13. So which of the following fundamental rights are available only to citizen, not to foreigners? So here the statement number 1, prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. Statement number 2, equality before the law and equal protection of the law. Statement number 3, protection of language, script, culture of minorities, protection against arrest and detection in certain cases. So here, if you take this, let us see fundamental rights available only to citizen and not to foreigners. So these are the articles one has to remember. The 5 articles which is especially given to citizens, that is article 15, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religious, that is article 15. Article 16, equality of opportunities in matter of public employment, this is only available to citizen, not to foreigners. And 19, protection of 6 rights regarding to freedom, that is speech and expression, assembly, association, movement, residence, profession. So this is given only to citizen. And also article 29 and article 30, which are given specifically to the citizens. Therefore, answer for the question number 13, B is right answer. Why B is right answer? Since 1 and 3 is right. Let us see why this 1 and 3 only right. This, if you take statement number 4, the protection against arrest and detection in certain cases, that is article 22, it is provided for foreigners also, and both citizens and foreigners. And also if you take statement number 2, equality before law, article 14, it is also provided to both citizens and foreigners, but except enemy aliens. Therefore answer for the question number 13 is 1 and 3. I will tell you the fundamental rights available to both citizen and foreigners, that is article 14, 20, 21, 21a. If you take 14 and 20 to 28, remember that 20 to 28, which include 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. These are the rights available to both citizens and foreigners. So answer for the question number 13 is B, 1 and 3. Let us move on with the question number 14. Here we have to identify the committees and the Constitution Assembly headed by Provincial Constitution Committee Sardar Patel, and Steering Committee Jawaharlal Nehru, Union Constituent Committee Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Committee on the Functions of Constituent Assembly GVM. So we have to identify the incorrect, I mean not correctly matched. So if you take statement number 1, it is correctly matched. Yes, the Provincial Constituent Assembly, I mean committee, was headed by Sardar Patel. Therefore this statement number 1 is right, but we have to identify the not correct statement. So this, if you take statement number 2, this is incorrect. Why incorrect? Steering committee was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Therefore this statement is wrong. If you take statement number 4, the Committee on the Functions of the Constituent Assembly, Yes, this statement is right. GVM only headed this committee. If you take statement number 3, this is wrong. Union Constituent Committee was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Therefore, here we have to identify the not correct statement. So here 2 and 3 only not correct. Therefore, B is right. Answer for this question. 2 and 3 only not correct according to the question number 14. So let us move on with the question number 15. Which of the following provisions form a part of basic structure of the constitution? Rule of law? Yes. The mandate to build a welfare state? Yes. Secular? Yes, this is the very basic structure. And harmony and balance between fundamental rights and directive principles? Yes. So therefore all the given statements are correct related to basic structure. Therefore answer for the question number 15 is D. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Here this basic structure doctrine was laid by the Supreme Court in the case of Keshavananda Bharati was the state of Kerala, and also it derived a basic structure from the various judgments have emerged as the basic features of the constituent and elements and components of the basic structure of the constituent. So let us see the supremacy of the constituent, sovereign, democratic republic, secular, federal character, unity and integrity, welfare state, judicial review, freedom and dignity, parliamentary system, rule of law, principles of equality, free and fair elections, independence of judiciary. So here lists are given, lot of lists are given. So I have mentioned you only few due to the time constraint. So let us move on with the question number 16. So which were the reason for the adoption of the parliamentary system in India? Familiarity with the system? Yes, this statement 1 is right. Statement number 2, nature of Indian society? Yes, our nature of Indian society, this is also right. But if you take statement number 3, that is wrong. Need for strict separation of powers, that is wrong. Why? Here the strict separation of powers is the future of presidential system of government, not the parliamentary system of government. In Indian parliamentary system, the separation of powers is accompanied with the system of check and balances. Therefore 3 is wrong. You can eliminate C and none of the above, and just we have discussed that statement number 1 and 2 is right. Therefore answer for the question number 16 is B, 1 and 2 only. So let us move on with the question number 17. Which of the following is or are the discretionary powers of the president? Appointment of the prime minister when no political party has the majority in the Lok Sabha, and exercise the packet veto, and power of promulgating an ordinance. Let us see. Here the statement 1 is right, since when no political party has the majority in the Lok Sabha, the president can exercise his or discretion and invite a person to to become a prime minister. And statement number 2 is also correct. The bill passed by the parliament can become an act only if it receives the assent of the president, which means the president has veto power, which he can withhold or refuse to give the assent to the bills. You have to note here that if it is not a money bill passed by the parliament, since for a money bill the president has to give a assent, and the president can send back the bill to the parliament asking it to reconsider the bill in the case of ordinary bills. So these are the discretionary powers of the president. If you take in case of packet veto, the president neither ratifies nor reject nor return the bill, but simply keeps the bill pending for an indefinite period. This is the power of president not to take any action, either positive or negative, on the bill is known as packet veto. Therefore, this statement is 2. Statement number 2 is right. What about statement number 3? The power of issuing ordinance is not a discretionary power of the president. Hence, he can promulgate or withdraw an ordinance only on the advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Therefore, this statement number 3 is incorrect. So, the answer for the question number 17 is C 1 and 2 only. So, let us move on with the question number 8. With reference to the impeachment of the president, consider the following statement. The resolution can be moved only after giving at least 14 days written notice signed by not less than 1/4 of the total members of the House. And statement number 2. The nominated members of either House of the Parliament cannot participate in the impeachment of the president. We have to identify the incorrect statement. So let us analyze the statement number 1. This statement is right. Why? These charges should be signed by 1/4 member of that house that frames the charges, and also the 14 days notice should be given to the president. Then only this impeachment procedure, and also the grounds was not mentioned in the Constitution of India, but he can be removed from office by a process of impeachment for violation of the Constitution. And however, the Constitution does not define the meaning of the violation of the Constitution. Violations of constitutions. It has not mentioned the meanings also. But the impeachment charges can be initiated by either house of the Parliament, and it has been signed by 1/4 member, and also 14 days notice should be given to the president. After this impeachment resolution is passed by the majority of 2/3 of the total membership of the house, it is sent to other house which investigate the charges. Here the president has the right to appear and to represent at such investigation. If the other house also sustains the charges and passes the impeachment resolutions by a majority of 2/3 member of total membership, then the president stands removed from his office from the date on which the resolution is passed by the second house. Therefore, this statement number 1 is right. Let us see about statement number 2. Here, the nominated members of the either of the Parliament can participate in the impeachment of the president, though you have to know that they do not participate in his election, but they can participate in the impeachment of president. Therefore, this statement number 2 is wrong. Therefore, answer for the question number 18 is A 1 only is right. And let us move on with the question number 19. With reference to the ordinance making power of the president, consider the following statement. He can promulgate an ordinance only when the both houses of the Parliament are not in session. The ordinance can be retrospective. Here we have to identify which of the following statement is or are correct. So here we have to identify the correct statement. If you take statement number 1, it is incorrect. Why incorrect? It looked like a correct, but it is incorrect statement. Let us see why it is incorrect statement. Here the ordinance making power is the most important legislative power of the president. It has been vested in to deal with the unforeseen or urgent matters. It can promulgate an ordinance only when the both houses of the Parliament are not in session, or when either house of the two houses of the Parliament is not in session. Here note this point: when both houses of the Parliament are not in session, or when either of the two houses of the Parliament is not in session. Either. And therefore, this statement number 1 is wrong, incorrect. And one has to know that the ordinance can be issued when only one house is in session, because the law can be passed by both the house, not by one house alone. Therefore, the ordinance issued when the both house are in session is void. Thus, the powers of the president to legislate by ordinance is not a parallel power of the legislation. Therefore, the statement number 1 is incorrect. If you take statement number 2, this is also incorrect statement. It is mentioned as the ordinance cannot be retrospective, but the ordinance, like any other legislation, can be retrospective. Therefore, the statement is wrong. So, both the statements are incorrect. So, we have to identify the correct statement. Therefore, answer for the question number 19 is D, neither 1 nor 2. And question number 20. Here, the president is elected not directly by the people, but by a members of the electoral college consisting of the elected members of both houses of the parliament. Yes, this statement is right. The elected members of the legislative assembly of the state. Yes, this statement is also right. The elected members of the legislative assembly of Delhi and Puducherry. Yes, this statement is also right. Here we have to identify the correct statement. Here all the given statements are correct. The answer for the question number 20 is D, 1, 2, 3. So here you have to note that the nominated members are not participated in the election of president, but they can while during the impeachment procedure. Therefore, here we have to identify the election. So these are the statements. All the statements are correct. The president is elected not directly by the people. So let us move on with the question number 21. With reference to the election of the President of India, consider the following statement. The nomination paper of a candidate for the presidential election has to be subscribed by at least 50 electors as proposer, at least 50 electors as seconders. The value of vote of all the MPs and value of vote of all the MLS is the same. Here we have to identify the correct statement. If you take statement number 1, yes, this statement number 1 is correct. The nomination paper of a candidate for the election has to be subscribed by at least 50 electors as proposer, at least 50 electors as the seconders. And also the security deposit of election rupees 15,000 should be kept as a deposited either in cash with the returning officer or receipt showing the amount has been deposited by the candidate on behalf of him in the Reserve Bank of India or in a government treasury, which is also furnished along with this nomination paper. If you take statement number 2, this is incorrect. Why it is incorrect? The value of votes of MLA would differ from state to state, as the value of each such vote is calculated by the process. Therefore, this is explained in the Article 55 subclass 2 of the Constitution of India. Therefore, this statement is wrong. Here we have to identify the correct statement. Therefore, option A is one only is right. So let us move on with question number 22. With reference to the Ministry of the Parliamentary Affairs, consider the following statement. It constitutes departmentally related standing committee and it conducts youth parliament competitions in universities, colleges all over the country. We have to identify the correct statement here. If you find the statement number 1, this is incorrect statement. Why it is incorrect? The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs constitute consultative committee of the members of the parliament and makes arrangement to hold their meetings both during the session and intersection periods. Therefore, this statement number 1 is incorrect. What about statement number 2? Yes, the statement number 2 is right. So, if you take to strengthening the roots of democracy and disciplines and tolerance, and for enabling the students community to have intimate knowledge of the working of parliament, the ministry conducts youth parliament competitions in the schools of the governments of national capital territory of India, Kendra Vidyalayas and Navdol Vidyalayas and universities, colleges all over the country. Therefore this statement number 2 is right. Here we have to identify the correct statement. Therefore B1 and B2 only correct statement. So let us move on with question number 23. The the provision of joint sitting of applies to which of the following bills? Ordinary bills, Constitution Amendment Bill, Money Bill. Here we have to choose the code. Okay, correct statement. The correct statement is ordinary bill only. So answer for the question number 23 is A1 only. Since there is no joint sitting in case of money bill and also in case of constitutional amendment bills. Here the provision of joint sitting is applicable to the ordinary bills or financial bills only, but not on the money bill or constitutional amendment bills. Therefore 2 and 3 is wrong. The answer for the question number 23 is A1 only. So let us move on with the question number 24. Which of the following Constitution Amendment Act added 4 languages under 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, thereby raising the numbers to 22? Let us see, 92nd Amendment Act. Straight answer, that is 92nd Amendment Act of 2003 is the right answer. So these things we have to know since it is straight answer. Why? The 92nd Amendment Act of 2003 included 4 more languages in 8th schedule. What are they? Bodo, Dongri, Maithili and Shantali. These are the 4 languages added in the 8th schedule during 92nd Amendment Act of 2003. And let us move on with the question number 25. So this is the last question for today's discussion. Let us see. With reference to the money bill, consider the following statement. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha with the recommendations of the President of India. It is straightforward answer. Yes, correct statement. If you take statement number 2, the President can declare that he withhold assent to a money bill when it is presented to him for its assent. Let us see the statement number 2. The statement number 2 is also correct. So we have to identify the correct statement. Both the statements are correct. So answer for the question number 25 is both 1 and 2 is correct. So let us see few facts related to money bill. The money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, so on the recommendations of the President. And this money bill must be passed in Lok Sabha by a simple majority of all members present and voting. Simple majority, kindly note. Following that, it has been sent to the Rajya Sabha for its recommendation, which Lok Sabha may reject also. And if it is chooses to, which means if such recommendations are not given within 14 days, it is deemed to be passed by the Parliament, which means within 14 days a Rajya Sabha has to give either its recommendations or send that bill back to the Lok Sabha. So however, the President can withhold assent to a money bill only on the advice of the Council of Ministers, not at his discretion. So these are the things one has to remember about the money bill. So here both the statements are correct. Answer for the question number 25 is both 1 and 2 only. Hope these questions will help you while solving the prelims quiz and also kindly go through it fully, and we will discuss more questions in the upcoming classes. So thanks for being with this discussion. We will meet in the next session. Thank you all. Have a good day.